So I have been reading with you and commenting on the Shivastotravali by Utpaladeva. The Shivastotravali dates, and I'll go over this again for those of you who haven't been here before, just for a minute. The Shivastotravali dates from the mid-10th century. It is a devotional work by probably the most intellectually competent person in the history of Indian philosophy. Utpaladeva is the author of the Ishvara Pratyabhijna Karikas, which people more competent than I in the field would argue is the most sophisticated philosophical statement ever written on the face of the planet. It's certainly extraordinary within the history of South Asian philosophical traditions. Written in the most rigorous academic style of the time, which is as good as, anything written today. The Ishvara Pratyabhijna Karikas argue for the primacy of consciousness, that before anything there is consciousness itself that is self-aware, self-organizing, and self-expressing. It is given the name Shiva to refer to this ultimate, the first condition of existence itself, because of its self-awareness. It has a name because it is self-aware and it's self-referential. And it is this self-awareness capacity, quality, that permeates the universe and is the foundation of our own, not just our existence, but our own self-awareness. So in other words, Shivastotravali, the Ishvara Pratyabhijna Karikas of Utpaladeva argues that in fact, while there are many minds, there are only one consciousness. And out of that one consciousness, and the one mind that is the quality of that consciousness, the many minds unfold. Because the mind of Shiva is a seething cascade of, limitless possibility. I'm sorry I'm not getting the quote exactly. I was trying to quote Hedley Lamar in the bathtub with his froggy from the movie Blazing Saddles. But maybe you'll remember the scene, right? My mind is a cauldron of seething possibility. And out of the turbulence of the mind of Shiva, the jillions of individual minds rise up. And none of these billions and billions of individual minds is ever in any way separate from the mind of Shiva, of the ultimate reality, the ultimate mind. And so, when we practice meditation, and practice is embedded in these poetry, when we practice meditation, what we are doing is aligning our individual mind with, we're connecting, aligning and flowing from small mind to cosmic mind, and re-establishing ourselves in our own fundamental reality. It is because each of us as individuals is identified with our bodies that we become completely entangled in desire and the worldly manifestation of awareness itself, rather than established in our own basic nature and ultimate reality. Now, what I mean by that is to say that all of us have the idea, that the rock solid understanding that our mind is in this body. Our mind and our body, this is me, my body and my mind. But what Utpaladeva, and in fact the entire tantric tradition, argues is that the mind is not in the body is in the mind. And it is the mind, when you look at your hand, it is the mind that is telling you a story about this hand. And by now, especially, there are two people that I will refer you to. One is David Eagleman, who's a neurologist researcher in Houston. And the other is Donald Hoffman, who's an AI by now, and he's a cognitive science researcher, but with a very deep background in AI. He was at the AI lab at MIT for years. These two people alone are two of the people. But if you read those two people, just those two people, you would understand that everything your mind is telling you about everything isn't true. And if you understood how unreliable your mind is, how incredibly unreliable your mind is, well, it would shake your confidence in everything. In a good way, maybe. The pivot between in a good way and a self-destructive way is what Utpaladeva is arguing here in favor of devotion. Utpaladeva is probably the most learned, or he certainly, I wouldn't say, some people argue Abhinavagupta's background is broader than Utpaladeva's. Abhinavagupta at least writes as if he is an expert in all of the transmissions. Utpaladeva's work is, though he's not in the Karikas explicit about his background, it seems that it's more influenced by the Krama than any of the other transmissions. But he is not focused on transmission or on any kind of practice tradition in the Karikas. It's pure philosophy. He's pure, and it's put in the format of Tarka Shastra, which is pure argumentation. It has always dazzled me that Utpaladeva, who is, my God, he seems like he must be completely stuck in his head when he's arguing, when he's doing the Ishvara Pratyabhijna Karikas. It's like such an intellectual process. Oh, it's always amazed me that he can come from that intensely intellectual place and pivot to a work which is a work of pure love and devotion. And it has, for that, I've always admired him, especially for that reason. The 11th song that we're reading today, and as I told you last week, I'm not always clear about how the title of the stotra is related to the content of it. So, but It's the title is Bound to the World by Desire. He begins, neither this world, nor a friend, nor a relative belong to me at all. When you are all this, who else then could be mine? And you'll remember a few weeks ago I gave a little talk to you about how our lives, the life that we think we have, this is my life, we say, this is my life. This is who I am. I was born in this place. This life that we have, that we call our own, is not our life at all. It isn't our life. And this body that we call my body, or this mind that we call mine, is not mine at all. In fact, the human beings are extraordinary. They're extraordinary in their arrogance. Because here we are, the tiniest of little parasitic creatures, riding on the back of a gigantic dragon, which is life itself, imagining somehow that we are in control of something and struggling relentlessly for that which we desire. We are all about desire. We desire this, we desire that, not even having the slightest clue if what we desire is even in the smallest way connected to what is in the interest of our well-being. And of course, for people, because we're very stubborn and persistent, we cling to our desires. And in the face of the destruction that we wrought upon ourselves because of our entanglement and desire, what do? We double down and want it even more. And we get sour and negative when we don't get it. And we look out on the world and we look into ourselves and we say, I'm shit and that's fucked up. And this dynamic persists in us further and further and further until we decompensate into a giant puddle of negativity, realizing that nothing is ours and we control nothing. We have the opportunity to disentangle ourselves from desire through the process of contact, alignment, and flow, and connecting to that fundamental spring, if you want, of creative energy, which is emergent within us. We can rediscover our source and reside in the simple basic goodness that force embodies. Also, I want to say one other thing about this work, and that is for those of you who haven't been before, and that is, this is a work that is constructed in the context of a non-dual perspective, meaning he's argued already in his life strongly, powerfully argued, that in fact the world is only one thing, and that one thing is consciousness itself. And there are not two things. And so one of the things about this work, if you read in this work, it's you and me, you, O Lord, and me. And that's the form of it. But that's not exactly how it is. What he's doing here is he is talking about the dialogue, the internal dialogue that is happening between the billion small minds and the one true mind. And so when he speaks about you or about me, he's talking about, you know, the ego and the small mind, the bound mind of that the individual, if you want to call him that, and the mind of the universe itself. And that mind of the universe itself is a conversation that is, in one sense, is being approached by, the scientists in the world who are engaging in the topic of information theory. Because information theory is ultimately about thoughts that the universe has of itself. So he says, "You, O Master, are the great Lord. You are in truth the entire world. Thus, asking for any one specific thing is just the asking and nothing more." Our desire is, from a higher perspective, a brain fart about nothing. And he's also making a comment here about prayer, frankly. Because one of the important parts of religion is behaving in order to seek the boon of the deity, or the fulfillment of the desire that we have from the deity. And he's basically again saying, poof. Prayer is a brain fart. And from his perspective, that is completely so, because when you have arisen in the first place from a possibility that is beyond your imagination and an abundance that is beyond your capacity to conceive, what is there to be prayed for except contact, alignment, and flow? So he's making a distinction between the ordinary religion and this elevated perspective. And just to kind of keep tripping, I want to trip out a little bit again and say that in a world in which the truth of everything is only one thing, then enlightenment is what? It is merely a question of perspective. Perspective. And what completely pollutes our perspective over and over and over again is desire. Desire is what pollutes our perspective. But to further comment, I would like to say, in that case, it becomes, if perspective is the issue, then becoming positive, becoming a positive person, becoming a person who is first and most fundamentally, grounded in respect for everybody. And from that basic respect for everybody, expressing an understanding that each of us as human beings is forced to struggle. We are forced to struggle, and from our own struggle, grounded in respect, we can respect the struggles of other people and be inspired to kindness and compassion. So much of the time, the meaning of the term compassion is, sort of, let's have sympathy for all those lesser creatures who are forced to be in the mud. Compassion is not any compassion that isn't fundamentally rooted in a profound respect for the source of life itself and the extraordinary way in which it is manifesting its diversity, its potential as diversity. That's arrogance. Compassion and kindness are based in respect, period. And then with respect and kindness and compassion, we establish connections in this world, connections to other people in this world that are, in which it is possible to have genuine contact, alignment, and flow. Supremacy over the three worlds appears as trifling as a piece of straw to those who are devoted to you. What other fruit than your remembrance need their good deeds bear? Meaning, this process, and he's reflecting on a dimension of the experience of people who have risen above authentic religion, but have somewhere in their DNA still the residue of desire. Because rather than praying for anything now, having risen above prayer, we enter into the realm of what we will call siddhi, or spiritual power. And he is saying, who gives a shit about power on any level when you have the opportunity to be immersed in the sweetness that is, the wisdom and the understanding of our own truest nature? What other fruit should there bear than your remembrance, the constant remembrance, the constant awareness of awareness itself, and the vibrancy and the beauty that is intrinsic to the ultimate reality? The abundance that's intrinsic to the ultimate reality is what he is reminding us here. We're not here about power. The sweetness of the experience of beauty, shared, appreciated, cultivated, expanded, dissolves any delusion about power and establishes us in the supremely refined wisdom and understanding of the non-reality of the material world and the astonishing abundance of its source. And the pursuit of power, even in the spiritual field, in which the tantric tradition lays out two goals. One is mukti, liberation, and that's a topic which we've actually had interesting discussions about in the morning here. But mukti is one, liberation, and siddhi is the other, that's power. And here he's saying, for sure, siddhi is stupid. It's ego-based, it's dangerous, and the pursuit of siddhi leads you in the whole wrong direction. I have a manuscript of Nityananda that I was given to by a long time ago that nobody else in the world has. And I was given this by a senior Indian Navy officer who was a devotee of Nityananda's from 1934. So he knew him a long time. And he knew all of Nityananda's early disciples, and he went around among them through the years that he was identified with Nityananda and collected their stories. Most of it is like, I mean, there's a lot of fantastic stories, and maybe I'll talk about that in a moment. But what I want to say about it is, but this guy was able to capture a few stories that show Nityananda in his in his base humanity. And one of the things that captured my attention when I was revisiting this manuscript recently was that Nityananda was, asked by one of his devotees about two incidences in which were famous about him. One being a kind of a tantric guy who was pretty arrogant, was pissed that Nityananda was given a higher place at a wedding than he was. And so he tried to poison Nityananda and ended up dying himself from the poison. He gave it to him, Nityananda ate it, and this guy dropped dead right there. Boom. And another time was when Nityananda was seen walking across a lake on the water. He left a place, sort of got inspired or agitated or something, left a place and walked right across the lake to leave it because there was a big crowd in front of him he didn't want to walk through. And a woman was asking him about that, and Nityananda said, I didn't do any of that. I didn't do it. It just happened. And I don't know, I don't even want to know how it happened. It just happened. And I thought that was such a sweet and pure statement that, it's not me. There is no I. There is no mine. There is no nothing like that. And there is no power but the one power, which is expressed in the world as an expression of contact, alignment, and flow. And all other power related to human activity and the fulfillment of any desire is really the structure of ego and its substance, which is toxicity. It is poison. Only desire puts you in tune with your alignment with your environment instead of your inner self. Only because of desire does your identification with the body and the processes of the body activate, this external rotation of your mind and your identity with the circumstances of your physical existence. Right? Why do I do a Haben? Well, it's a teaching tool. It's about giving back. It's about constantly flowing, because giving back is part of the process of flowing. If we don't give, if we're just taking and taking and taking and taking and taking, well, we will eventually give back when we give up this body. Everything we've taken is going to go right back in the soil, But if it's about taking, then we get nowhere. We never evolve. So Giving back is a fundamental part of the process of contact, alignment, and flow. What am I doing here? Instead of, why am I not doing a Havan? Why am I sitting here? Because I am giving back in a different form, which isn't really, it's a different form than the Havan, but if you look underneath, the soil of it, if you look underneath the surface, I'm doing the same thing as the Havan right here, right now. Giving back through the fire. What are we doing? We are taking the energy of these things, which are might be valuable to us, and releasing that energy and giving it back. And in giving it back, we are creating a larger flow, which we can then participate in and become bigger ourselves, and become bigger ourselves, and the flow and the flow and the flow until we are dissolved. We and our ego and our desires and our little minds are dissolved in the flow of beauty and sweetness and creativity that is the intrinsic to awareness itself. You have never, heard me say, I am in this world to grow power. Ever. You've never heard me say that. You know why? Because that ain't what I'm doing. I am in this world to grow love. That experience is based fundamentally on profound respect for looking at somebody and seeing God in them. Not looking at somebody and trying to figure out what their shit is. I'm in this world to grow love and to respect people and to participate in contact, alignment, and flow. The remarkable part of contact, alignment, and flow is it facilitates the emergence of unimaginable possibility. In the same way that in a dynamic system, all the features of the system come together and express emergent qualities that are expressions of the fundamental and unimaginable potential that is space itself. And so contact, alignment, and flow satisfies desires that we don't even know we have, as it reveals, the potential which has been embedded in the dynamics of our family system since its inception. And we don't have to think about power, because all of our desires in alignment with unimaginable possibility, with alignment with the ultimate reality, aligning our small mind regularly with the cosmic mind, and allowing that to flow in us and flow through us in connection with, the other transistors that we're in this field with, astonishing things happen. We are not here for power. And Nityananda's humanity in that, and humility in that moment, saying, it wasn't me doing it. I don't do anything. Nityananda was in this world to grow love and to share the understanding that humanity is of the earth. It's, and it is an expression of the highest dimension of creative process that is endemic to the universe. That's all. He wasn't here for power. And he wasn't here to be like, hey, aren't you amazing? We are in this world to grow love, and our practice of that, all the practices that we do, saturated with respect and devotion, become the pathway for growing love and expressing contact, alignment, and flow, which brings us to a place where we are transcending all of the family systems that we are entangled in and being established in an ever increasingly refined and much larger in its space-time scope. We are being established in an ever increasingly fine and vaster dynamic system. Ultimately, we become liberation is being freed from every system that is less than the dynamic system from which the mind of Shiva has emerged. Underneath the universal form is a structure of information. And that structure, that cosmic structure of information has emerged from the pure awareness, the pure self-awareness of the universe. Power will separate you, and differentiate you and entangle you in the universe of desire. And so the pursuit of power within the context of any activity inevitably leads to corruption. That's why sadhus, spiritual people, leave the world for the most part. Utpaladeva and the people who participate in the tantric traditions, you can do anything. You can be in any world you want, as long as you have the right perspective. But the pursuit of power is, pathway straight to hell. Because it is an intrinsic statement about your own lack of self-worth and the idea that you are carrying that there is something in the universe that is someplace else that you need to feel good about yourself. And in fact, the only place anything you need to feel good about yourself exists is right in the middle of your own heart. It's right here. And when you stop shitting around with all that garbage in your head and all this shit in your world, and you come into your heart purely from devotion, with genuine devotion and a genuine commitment to service, not a phony commitment to service. It's really self-service. When you establish yourself in this place, everything is going to come to you. Everything. When your heart is truly open and when you are truly connected in that beauty, which is your own essence, what else is going to add anything to that experience? What else? So there, we need to liberate our minds from negativity because, that completely blocks us from entering into the purity of the space that is our heart essence. And as long as I am holding on to negativity in any form, I am never going to be purely established in love. Because I am constantly going to be doubting everything. When nothing at all is different from you, and even the creators of the world is your creation, there is no need then to sing the praises of your miraculous deeds. He's kind of pimping himself in a way, because he's singing praises of the miraculousness. And that's very charming of him, and I'm happy that he has a good sense of humor. You would imagine that such an academic guy who wrote such a apparently constipated work as the Ishvara Pratyabhijna Karikas wouldn't have a sense of humor, especially about himself. But he does, which is one of the reasons I completely admire the guy. It must have been amazing. But what he's saying here too is, the Vedic gods, there were a lot of Vedic gods, and in the traditional world there were lots of different gods. And what we don't understand when we read all of this because of our own ignorance about, our own experience of the world, of our world, what we don't understand is that if everything has emerged out of consciousness itself, then the wind, or the deity that represents the wind, Varuna, and the water, and the deity that represents the water, and the fire, Agni, and all of the natural phenomenon that have been deified in the Vedas and and in traditional religion, are nothing more than ultimate consciousness expressed as creative energy and having emerged their own resonance and their own form. The wind is conscious. The water is conscious. The ocean is aware. It is an awareness that is, grounded in but unique from the awareness of the sky, which is unique and slightly different than the place it's grounded in space itself, that the planet is grounded, which is space itself. But all of this is unique expressions of the one pure awareness that is the mind of the ultimate reality. So, singing the praises of all the different gods, whether it was all the Vedic gods or which got distilled at a later point to Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, or to the entire pantheon of goddesses, is not necessary. All the goddesses, all the gods, everything is all rooted in and an authentic but, ultimately unreal expression of the one vibrant reality from which everything has emerged. And that one vibrant reality is what we are connecting. Every time we practice, we are connecting this and this and this to that. And we are becoming, in our connection, a vehicle through which all of this astonishing potential and beauty can circulate in the form of a flow into and through us for the sake of the sacredness of total environment, for the sake of devotion to that sacredness. I am one with you. So when he's praising, singing praises of miraculous deeds, doesn't matter about which God we're talking about. At this point, the mind is dissolved in the experience of bliss, period. I am one with you, constantly immersed in worshiping you. Since I am like this all the time, why can I not realize that naturally even when I'm dreaming? Well, that's because the mind is the slayer of the soul. And in the very first sutra, he said something I think is so important when he pointed out that the mind is the seed essence of all suffering, which is why it is essential that we are relentlessly positive, because the life we have is the life that has been given to us by the goddess. The life that has emerged from, the primordial ocean of consciousness itself, the life we have. Not the life we desire, the fucking life we have. And we don't need other, we don't need any other, there isn't any other out there, that will fulfill the life we have. The expression of the life, of our experience is really an extension of the life that we have been given. And so unwrapping, unpeeling, going ever more deeply into the life that we have been given is what reveals the astonishing abundance that we have been blessed with from the very beginning. And it is this whole restlessness about, I need more, I need different, I need something, I need another, I need. That is fucking endless, and that path destroys everybody. The path toward self-realization is the acceptance of the life that we have and the cultivation of ourselves within that life through the practice of contact, alignment, and flow that liberates completely from any kind of constraint the expression of our ultimate creative capacity. Without devotion, we're constantly not recognizing our own highest potential, and constantly getting sucked back into the sewer of our brains, of our head, our mind. And remember my favorite song. At this point, I think it's appropriate. We remember my favorite song. You remember that, right? My favorite song. What's the ugliest part of your body? What's the ugliest part of your body? Some say your nose, others think your toes. I say it's your mind, your mind, your mind. We'll stop now.